Please join me in welcoming our esteemed guest, Vilmos Zsigmond, to the stage. Welcome. So the way that we will do the interview, I will ask a few kind of broader questions, and we'll talk for about 25 minutes, and then we'll be sure to open it up to all of you. So looking at this incredible clip reel, which is only a slice of your career, I imagine it's humbling for me. I imagine for emerging practitioners, incredibly overwhelming for how to even start to think about how they would build their body of work. Can we start with the beginning, with you in school, or how you became introduced to film and the love of cinema?
First of all, thanks for coming up. I never had so many people in my seminars. And I'm so great to see so many people are interested in movies. All my life has been in the love of movies. And I've been very lucky in my life because the way my life shaped actually in my early days. I mean, I was just lucky to be at the right time at the right place and making the right decisions, even if in those days it was like a bad idea. And just like when in Hungary, how I became actually a cinematographer was just by luck, because my parents actually, they were not really close into any kind of art. And my father was a soccer goalkeeper and a coach, a good one actually. He was a very good goalkeeper in those days, in the 30s. And I tried to follow his path actually in sports, but it didn't work. I went as far as become a great ping pong player. And ping pong actually was taking me into areas where I never thought I would go. Like, you know, I could not get into a university because my parents were bourgeois in the Stalinist days in Hungary. You know, I could not go to school, so I ended up in a factory, working in a factory, and I got the job because I was a good ping pong player and it was a part of the team. And I was actually an enemy of the States, basically, because my parents have a pub and exploiting the worker class, you know. So anyhow, I was working in a factory and didn't know what to do in my life, and went to the party secretary and said that, can you do something about me? Because I love this place. Okay, but I would like to go to school. I would like to study some other things. And so, well, let me see your file. I looked at my file. I knew that my father was in Morocco. So that they could be thinking I was a spy, you know, but corresponding with my father with the West. And I said, well, what can I do? What can I do? I said, well, first of all, stop corresponding with your father. Oh, okay, that's easy. Okay, I'm not going to write letters anymore. Okay, good. What else? So, well, you have to show to the working class that you are feeling for them. You have to do something for them. And I was thinking about what can I do for the working class, you know. I mean, so what can I do? So I got this great idea to teach photography. Because I was already taking pictures with a little camera, and and by that time I loved it, but basically with photography itself. And I was suggesting that, well, how about if I start a photo club in the factory, and I was teaching photography for the working class. I said, wow, this is a great idea. Nobody ever did that. Okay, so that's how it started. A year later, they told me that there's a place in Budapest called the film. It's basically not a university, but like something, you know, photography basically, about cinematography. I didn't know what an operator was. In Hungary, a cinematographer was called an operator. So I thought maybe he was a doctor or something like that, you know. So I said, well, I can try. I mean, sure, sounds like good, but what do they do? So, well, you will find out. So that's how I actually got into that film school. And that changed my whole life. I mean, I really, coming from a background which I had not much about art in a background, you know, and I just fell in with love with films and photography. And we had a great school. In those days, I think that Budapest Film School was probably the best in Europe. And a lot of people came out from that school, you know, and even in Canada, we had 3-4 cinematographers, you know, and after 1956, after the revolution, when I left, basically. I mean, that's in a nutshell, I said, that's my past, actually, before I got into films. And that part of the story, how did it become, you know, a part of the movement of the New Wave, the American New Wave in movies? That was, again, lucky to be here, actually, in North America in the right time, in the 70s. The 70s where most of the great movies were made, you know, low-budget, independent movies. And it was fun to be there at the beginnings, you know, when new young directors took over Hollywood, and all those shiny dance and musicals were gone, you know, all the colorful movies, they were gone, and I was actually starting, you know, to make movies which looked more like European movies in America. And I never liked bright colors, anyhow, in movies, and that's where I actually got hold of an invention we started in England by Freddie Young, that to flash the film, to sort of pre-light the film stock in order to make it more moody and less colorful. And that's how my very first important movie was made, McCabe and Mrs. Miller, with Robert Altman. And that was actually, that's where my history basically started in America, about how to get into the film industry by making one great film, you know, with a new director who never did really only television, and started a new style. And that was part of that, you know, McCabe and Mrs. Miller. And that was my luck again, that my beginning was with the director who was totally different than others. And Robert was just one of the greatest. His directing style was unique. You know, he never knew what he was shooting the next day. You know, there was a script which we should have been following, but it was not good enough. But so they had to improve it. So every night they were, with Warren Beatty and Julie Christie, they were rewriting the script. Which said, you know, the end of the film didn't look at all what the story was at the beginning, scripted. And, you know, whatever, there were days, you know, when I would walk up to him at night, I said, Robert, what are we shooting tomorrow? I said, well, you know, you will find out. In the morning, I go up there, Robert, where are we shooting? So, well, you know that restaurant what we are building there on the lot, you know, that's like 200 yards away. We have a scene there to shoot. I said, but Robert, we have not even cables there yet. We are not prepared for that. I said, so what? So you are going to prepare. How long is it going to take? Well, 2-3 hours. I said, all right, start it. Let's start talk. Go ahead, start it. And, you know, let me know when you are ready. And, you know, I must say that he was never impatient. Never. He knew things take time. And never will behind me, oh, how much longer? How many more minutes? You know, the actors are crazy, actually. No, never happened that way. He just let me do it when I was ready. I went there and said, I'm ready. And he went there and he was very fast. You know, once he got there with the actors, he already knew what we were doing because they had the time to rehearse it while I was lighting.
So you've talked about, you covered a lot, you're very efficient. You've talked in a lot of your writings about how you've had well, we all know you've had long-time collaborations with a lot of filmmakers with various different approaches. And you've mentioned Altman's love of improvisational. You've also talked about how important it is to rehearse and map out some of the lighting and getting some of the color palette. Can you talk a bit about maybe a filmmaker that you've worked with who really wants it rehearsed out and how that was beneficial to you or how it was different? Just so some of the audience members get to understand the difference in your style between the improvisational and the fully researched and mapped out coloring.
You know, it's interesting that everybody was asking me that I did 3 movies with Robert Altman. What happened after that? Why didn't I work more with Robert? I said, well, it was not really my choice, actually, but I would, if it would be my choice, I probably would be doing the rest of my life, you know, with Robert Altman. But, you know, directors are probably also like me that I didn't mind to work with different directors because I learned different things from each director. And you know, filmmaking is very interesting. I love the improvisational quality of the new directors like Robert. I think it was a reason why he didn't have plans ahead, because in order for the director to really make good scenes, has to talk to the actors first. They have to rehearse the actors, and then we have a very difficult situation almost in other movies. There's no time for rehearsals with actors, so they have to do it on the set. And then how can I light ahead something which I don't know what's happening there? And the actors are adding so many things also for each scene. So the director learns a lot from the actors while they are rehearsing, and then sort of the style of the movie develops. So many times at the beginning we don't know yet what the style of that movie is going to be. It happens. It happens with production design also, and it's like a combination of many artists working together. That's what filmmaking is about, basically. That's why I have a hard time, you know, to believe in today's people who are thinking about the future, how movies are going to be in the future, or even in the present. And then they are talking about pre-visualization, for example. They want me to pre-visualize a set. I mean, something, a scene. They're asking me how many lights I need for a certain scene. I said, I don't know. How will I know? I don't know. Give me the actors, let me the scene, let me see what's happening. Give me a set. You know, the set is not even built. I have to already plan what lights I'm going to use. I don't know where the doors are, I don't know where the windows are. How can I light something, you know, realistically? And this is what's happening in the future, that you will have to know exactly what you are going to do so you can save time and money. I don't know. So that's, okay. Every director I work with had a different style. They do different. I mean, Jerry Schatzberg on Scarecrow. It was wonderful to work with him. Again, I learned so much about, but just the way we did Scarecrow, you know, that was good. The actors made that picture, basically. That's the director and the actors working together. That's what made the movie. And we didn't know actually where we were shooting the next day. We were traveling. I didn't see the locations before. Many times we stopped actually in Detroit, and first time we saw the fountain where the ending sequence plays. Then we had to come up with improvising the whole thing that was going to happen. And most of the time it worked. And there was that scene there, for example, that ending scene there, which for some reason it didn't work, acting-wise. So the next day we went back and reshot the whole thing. That was the only thing that we had to reshoot in the whole movie. But it had to happen because the actors just didn't feel that the way it was written, it was right. So there's a lot good to say about filmmaking as an improvisational art.
If it's an improvisational art, what are some of the foundational tools or the core kind of skill sets or thoughts that a cinematographer should have? You often talk about the classics, knowing the classics in painting and movies and photography. What for you are the classic techniques or the real foundational tools that a cinematographer should have for this improvisational playground?
Well, I think I learned in film school basically to be very real. That real was really in movies was happening in those days, and it started first in Italy. The Nouvelle Vague, it started basically in Italy, in the Italian filmmaking. Vittorio De Sica and his contemporaries, they were doing those great Italian movies, which we learned a lot in Hungary, even in those Stalinist days, we could see Italian movies because it was about the working class and it was very socialistic, and so that was okay to see those movies. So that influenced me a lot of my style. And it's interesting that when you talk about what's real and what's not real, real can be natural, it could be naturalistic, and real thing could be actually a sort of a different, like we used to call it with my friend Laszlo Kovács, that our style, what we learned in Budapest was a sort of as a poetic realism. That means it's real, but it has poetry. That it's not just like natural thing that, like available light photography, Yes, you can do available light photography and it looks real because it's real, because that's what we are used to see. But also there is actually a realistic thing, where it's real, but it's better than real. It suits actually the subject matter. So otherwise you find locations and you turn it into a scene with the mood of the lighting and all that to fit that certain movie, that certain scene, and that certain style which the film is developed. So this is the kind of a thing which I try to do and call it real. And it's so interesting that I always, when I see this 40 minutes thing that we saw today again, it's amazing when you pick probably the best scene of a movie, and it was just like 10-15 seconds of each movie, and it was just looking at it, it's so interesting that 10-15 seconds is really has the mood and the feeling of that story. And I don't know why, but that's what's happening in a good movie, that everybody is working together to create something new. And that's why I think movie making really should be an art form. And it is, and it was an art form. It started as an art form in the silent film days, but the images were the important things. And I always thought, that in my career, that yes, the images are the more important in filmmaking. Many times it went into direction. For example, when sound came in, and suddenly it became something different, and it became like a storytelling device. And then color came in, and it started to, be again something different. It didn't look real. And then after a while, There came some great directors who made it happen, that even with the sound, even with the colors, they started to make real good movies, and then looked like and felt like the old black and white movies, which I always loved actually to make black and white movies, because the real art form was really in movies, it was in black and white. Because I think, black and white is like an abstract form. Because we don't see the world in black and white. Some people maybe do see, lucky people, but but really it's an abstraction basically of real life. That's why it's not real. And sometimes it's more real than realistic, and that's the beauty of it actually. That it's an art form, and unfortunately we are losing that today also we are losing it because we think now that special effects we can do everything and just I don't know what's happening basically. That only good movies. I don't know what good movies anymore. So it's the effects are overtaking everything, and I think that the problem is that films started to be as about images, and we forget about that. And it's also started to be stories about people, and we forget about that. And now the effects are becoming the people. The effects are overtaking. I don't know how many explosions, how many killings, how many this, that. I mean, it's amazing. I was sitting on an airplane yesterday. Almost most of the people were. I'm looking at the screens. They were watching. They were nothing but the explosions and all that. I don't know which film was it, but it was ridiculous for me. I mean, what happened to my darling artistic movies? It was gone. It is gone. So how do we get it back? That's my problem and our problems and all these people. Actually, I think we are all our problem is that how do we get the audience back to the movies? Because we cannot get back the audience. We get the worst people out to watch these effect movies.
So is that part of your motivation for your Global Cinematography Institute and the expanded cinematography initiative that you're starting?
But this is part of the reason, actually, that we started that, and that's why part of that school myself, because I really believe that I'm not against the digital revolution. I mean, yes, that is a digital revolution, and I don't look at it as a danger, for artistic movies. We should be using that tool actually to make better movies, and I think I can shoot digital as well as I can shoot on film. I just consider that it's like a different kind of a film, a different kind of a camera, but the idea is still we have to make movies, good movies like films used to be. And in order to do that, we should not forget that for a good movie you actually need actually learn from the painters. And mostly from the Dutch painters, and painters, realistic painters, like Caravaggio and Leonardo, and now we can go down on the line, George Latour. All these painters, we can learn a lot actually, because they saw the world in a different ways. They saw the world actually in an artistic way, in a sort of poetic, realistic way. And interestingly, if you see a painting, you never saw a painter actually drive double shadows. I am a stickler about, in lighting, for example, it has to be, everything has to have single shadows, like painters used to do it in paintings. They probably in real life had double shadows, but they didn't paint it that way, because there was a better way to paint it. So I learned a lot from painters, and we should learn a lot from painters, and that's always the basic for everybody. Anybody who starts to become a cinematographer, you have to go back to the painters and learn there. Go to museums a lot and study from those people, and then you have to develop your own style. And the style is not really a style. It's not something which is you can write down that I like the key light come only from the right side, for example, or something. No, there's no such a thing as determine beforehand where the lights has to go. The best thing always to do is just to start out with the story, to start out what is it about, and then try to find that kind of a lighting, which suits that certain scene. And that's what I try to do actually, and teach. And my teaching method is not even a teaching method. I just say that have a camera, and I always have a camera with me. Somebody said that, why do you have your camera on your neck? I said, well, because it's always with me that way. And if it's I don't have it, I walk on the street and I see something and I don't have a camera. Yes, I have an iPhone. I can take an iPhone picture, but I don't like iPhone pictures, especially that I don't like to compose in a vertical way, so I don't see the world in a vertical way. I see it in a horizontal way. I see it in better than 16:9. I see it in 2:35:1. That's why I love anamorphic movies, because that's more like what the eye sees, actually. And that's what the painters were seeing, actually. Strangely enough, many, you go in the museum, and God, they were painting in 2:35:1. They had anamorphic eyes, or whatever, It's very interesting,
So I'm just going to ask one more question before we open it up so the audience can start asking specific questions about, I'm sure they have questions about lenses and equipment and specific scenes and films and how you were able to accomplish that. But beforehand, can you talk to us about the importance of belonging to guilds or organizations, like you're a part of the American Cinematography, American Society of Cinematographers? How are the organizations like the ASC or here the Canadian Society of Cinematographers, how can students or emerging practitioners, what role can these organizations play for them, and how can they help them?
It's very nice actually that we have. I can just talk really about the ASC, which I maybe forgot to say that I'm sending their greetings to you, all guys, today. They know that I'm here. In fact, they had a correspondence going on between the CSC, and that's why I am here. That's why I was yesterday also meeting with them last night. So I think it's interesting that we cinematographers feel like we have a totally different branch actually at the academy, because somehow we feel like we are friends. We are actually. It's interesting. We get together a lot. We talk about our problems. We talk about and we have no secrets. We always. That if you invent something, we tell right away to everybody else. So we are not as secure, actually. We don't like to have secrets. Like in the old days, cinematographers had secrets. They had actually a box which was locked with all those funny filters, what they used to have, Well, they did all those incredible images, and nobody could touch, nobody could even see those, because that was secret, because if they get hold of those filters, they can be as good cinematographers that they were, That's what they thought. And it's all BS actually, basically, A good cinematographer actually is inventive. Every movie has to look different. So there's no such a thing as using the same filters all the time and all the time. So anyhow, I think that the organization is very nice, and I think the Canadian is actually, in fact, I think you probably have more members in the Canadian organization, ECSC, more members than we have in American society. It's amazing, you have probably, 300-400 people, and we have probably 300 people in the organization. But really, actually, I don't think that you see all those people together maybe once a year on the award session. Well, but otherwise, I think I can say that we have maybe 40 or 50 real active members in our society, and I don't know how many you have here, but I would encourage all the CSC members, to get together as many times as they can, because you can learn from each other a lot, and this is something, we learn from each other and from other movies. I always learn from going to see other movies. I mean, I love to learn from European movies. I still feel like that the best artistic movies are still made in Europe, I think. And I think Canada is probably second after that. And the US, unfortunately, I think we are in a totally different direction going right now. And I hope that we go back, someday, for the better images in movies.
Thank you. So let's open it up to the audience so that we can continue this conversation and hear from you and your questions for our guest. So I ask that you put your hand up if you have a microphone. There's the flashing light right there. There's a question. I know. Happens quickly here. Go ahead.
Can you hear me? Hi. I'm sorry to use up everybody's time. I'll do this as quickly as possible. There was a film in Vancouver called Intersection, and there was an underwater scene. And Vilmos was suggested that they call someone up from LA, and it was suggested that maybe he should talk to this little girl first. So this little girl came into a studio, and he looked me in the eye, and he looked up at the studio wall and said, "How would you like this scene?" And I said, "I would light it this way." And so on a very big movie, he gave me the opportunity, and many years later, I won Women's Cinematographer of the Year, and the person I wanted to have the award given to was Vilmos. Unfortunately, he had knee surgery that weekend, and Russell Carpenter gave it to me instead. So I came here to say, I flew all the way here from Maui to say thank you very much, and I really appreciate it. Sorry. And my son is now taking up the wand, and we're hoping to come down, and I'm really glad you're teaching, and you're passing on all the great things you've done, and I've always looked up to you, and thanks for coming.
Thank you very much. That was very, very nice. Thank you.
There's a question right here.
I'm not sure how to follow that up.
I was thinking the same thing, buddy. Did you fly from Maui?
I want to ask, you're talking about improvisational directors, and I was wondering how Brian De Palma compares. I assume he's very improvisational, but I'm not really sure how that would work based on how his photography and camera movement and what have you. So if you could talk about Brian De Palma's style.
It changed actually during the years, actually. His style was, I remember the days when we started, I think we did, the first movie was Obsession, what I did it with Brian. And everything sort of was sketched in a very primitive way, which only he could actually read. I couldn't actually realize stick figures, and the only thing that I could read from his sketches was whether it was a single shot or a double shot, whether it was a head shot or it was a medium shot or a long shot. And it was more like a storyboard for himself, I think. And he used that very much because he followed up his own sketches. And we usually started with wide-angle shots and then close-ups and all that. And then when I went to Black Dahlia, I was asking him, "Hey, Brian, what happened to your sketches?" I said, "Forget it. Forget it. I don't need those anymore." That was in my early days. No, Brian is also a genius in a sense. He is really a visual filmmaker, and that's what I love about him. That the important thing is about images, and then he goes back. His whole idea about his style of movie making is pretty much like what I like about filmmaking is that it should be improvisational in a way. So he doesn't want to know exactly what he's going to do, on the day when we will be shooting. But he's more specific about it, at least for the beginning of the next day, that he can give me a setup so I can be prepared for him, because that saves a lot of time, in a day's work. And he likes to do good work, and very conscientious about his shots. And he always likes to do some incredible complicated shots. He loves complicated shots. But you saw here, for example, on his movie, on the Black Dahlia, is that shot which starts on the street, starts in a car. The two cops are actually waiting there, and then we cut to the shot, and starts on the street level and then goes up. We did it with the techno crane, which goes up 90 feet high, and this building actually exists in Los Angeles, but we built it. We built that building actually in Bulgaria. Whole movie was made in Bulgaria. Or Hollywood, part of Hollywood was in Bulgaria actually, and it was amazing. So we are going up with the techno crane, and then it goes over the building to the other side of the block, and we see a woman running, yelling, murder, murder. So it runs. That takes us into a car. We pick up the car is moving, camera is following with the arm, and the car then goes back into the street where we were before and ends up on that street. Now this was a one-shot thing, of course, and was going on maybe about 3 or 4 minutes. And we did it at least nine times, and one of them worked perfectly. And every movie, he has to have at least one shot like that. I mean, you probably, I don't know how many seen Bonfire of the Vanities. There's an opening shot there which goes like 5.5 minutes. And we didn't have a long enough film roll to do that shot, basically. And we had to roll down. So television made 500 feet magazines, but Kodak actually forgot to make 500 feet rolls of films. So we had to actually roll down from 1,000 feet rolls. You had to make 2 500-foot rolls in order to actually be able to do those shots actually in one shot. And some of them, we could not, we lost the last 10 seconds. So we had to do it over and over until we made it faster and faster in order to get it into one reel. And we were lucky with one, and it worked. And also, Brian is a guy who really loves visuals. And then, like the ending, there's the ending scene there, which end up in a big auditorium, which has a glass overhead.
Whoever has the mic, if you could turn your phones off.
And that was actually, I wanted to shoot that scene, by the way, that one-shot scene on Bonfire of the Vanities in the morning when the sun will come up, and then the sun basically just becomes light, and then that sky is going to be blue in the morning. And we had to shoot at night because that whole scene was about that, shooting at night. And I said, Brian, I know that we are going to be shooting this all night, but can we please do one shot also at the end of the day when the sun will come up? And because that will be the beautiful thing, to do. I said, we definitely will. I guarantee you we will be shooting that scene. Okay, so it turned out that at 3 o'clock in the morning we were finished. He was happy with the scene. I wanted to go home. I said, Brian, remember you said we are going to do a shot in the morning, And, oh, yeah, right. So what are we going to do until then? So, go back to the camper and sleep, and we come back. We came back, and we had actually 3 chances to do it. One, I decided to shoot it a little bit earlier than we have to. Because the sun comes up so fast, basically, that in a long scene like that, which is going on for 5 minutes, obviously, it will be looking different. So we have to catch really it will be one shot only, which will have the right sky, right? Okay, so we shot the first one and made it darker. So if you have to go darker, we have that. And the second shot was in sort of the middle, which was the ideal situation. And the third one was going to be too bright. So we did all 3 of them. And guess what? The best shot was the middle one. Just happened. So we were lucky, right? But again, I must say that Brian is a director who knows that the visuals are as important as the dialogue and everything else. And that's what I would like some directors here who are sitting there that remember that what Brian, is, he loves the visuals. And that's the main thing about movies, that it's visual.
Thank you. So we have a question right there. Yeah.
Hi, Vilmos. I must say that for looking at your reel, almost all of my favorite films were up there. So thank you. Mine is a two-parter, quickly. One is Deer Hunter. And that film has two very distinct atmospheres. And I was wondering about shooting that and some of the challenges that presented. And then back to Intersection, if also you could talk about some of the technical challenges of shooting that scene with Richard Gere in the car.
You mentioned two different...
Yeah, the Deer Hunter and
different
also...
what?
The different atmospheres. Like in the Deer Hunter...
Okay, you have actually three different...
Yeah. Sorry, I'm sorry.
Yeah, because you have to, if you are talking about different sequences, yes, it's three actually. As the beginning part is... the beginning is, which is going on and on and on with the wedding and all that. That was something, which they wanted to, basically the studio hated that because I said, well, that's not going to be in the movie. I mean, who is going to be watching, 40 minutes of something which has nothing to do with the movie? Right? That's what they said. And they told the editor to please do secretly another version of Deer Hunter, which won't have, not 40 minutes of the wedding, but maybe 5. He did. And Michael Cimino found out about it and fired the director. I mean, not the director, the editor. Fired him. And another editor put the whole thing, back together, which was there anyhow, because it was that editor was doing simultaneously 2 cuts. So anyhow, he was fired. At the end, he got the Academy Award for editing. The guy who was fired. For not his version. Okay. Anyhow, so that shows, how much sometimes they know if a long film is a bad film or is a good film. It turned out in Deer Hunter that it didn't hurt. In fact, it helped the movie because that beginning part was very important to establish the characters, and it was so nice, to see how these people live. And it's like, a time capsule almost of the times of, how people lived in those days. Second part is the Vietnam part. Obviously had to have a different style because we had to use a lot of stock footage there, and then we had to match basically the stock footage in a way. The stock footage was all shot on 16 millimeter. We could have done our footage on 16, but we decided to still do it on 35 millimeter, but that the sort of degrade the quality a little bit of that by flashing the film, pushing the film, and make it grainier looking, and make it more like war footage, more like to blend in with all the stock footage what we use, because we could not recreate actually the Vietnam War with our budget. We could not do that. And of course, the last part of the movie is totally different. It's more like a little bit of a desaturated colors, again flashing the film a little bit more, looks more like a black and whitish movie, and fit the mood, which was the kind of mood, which I was questioning Michael Cimino about at the ending of the movie, when the people are sitting, around the table, sort of a mourning scene, and it's like the Last Supper, basically. I mean, in a way, it creates the feeling of Leonardo da Vinci's painting, and the people are singing "God Bless America." And I said, Michael, don't you think that scene is going to be too corny? I said, what are you talking about? I said, well, yeah, everybody's using that song now. It's just couldn't you find something better? I said, well, Vilmos, stop talking. Let's not talk about it. Let's not talk about it. I will show you what's going to be. You will see it, and we will do that scene. You're not going to say that it's corny. And boy, he was right, actually. It was unbelievable, what the actors did in that scene. And I must say that I was crying, actually, behind the camera when I was shooting that scene, because it was just unbelievable what they created out of that nothing scene. There's no movement in it, no camera move, no nothing, but it was people and close-ups and all that. So that's why I'm saying that, that I mean, it's very difficult sometimes to predict by reading a script that what the director and actors can do with it. And the whole movie, basically, the Deer Hunter was like a once in a lifetime experience for me, because everybody, every crew member, everybody, it was such an ensemble picture that everybody did his or her best job ever. All the actors were just fantastic, and I mean, that was the movie which I don't think that I could repeat it. I did 70 some movies, but that one stands out as an ensemble thing. Everybody had a great job, and you can be proud of that, and in a film like that will live forever. I guarantee you that it's, for some reason, that film, I can see it over and over and over, and doesn't get older a day, and there are movies that when I saw, and I thought that were great movies, like West Side Story, for example, and then when I saw that the first time, I thought, wow, what a great movie. And now I look at it and I'm laughing at it, it's... it's interesting, that what film is becoming a classic, and that, that's a beautiful thing when it happens in once in a lifetime. That you made a classic, maybe by accident, maybe by just it happens. I don't know if that's all. I mean, intersection. I don't know what the question was about that. Oh, that was not the tactical difficulty. It was just the time of how long it takes. In real life, that accident, probably, when you played it, was maybe, 15 seconds, right? And we probably shot that in 15 days. And not exactly 15 days, but maybe just 1 week. But it was a lot of shots, and a lot of slow motion shots and all that. And it was basically a very important scene, because the whole movie is about that, basically, that the Richard Gere is in a coma. The whole movie basically is a flashback. So that was the crucial scene to do it right and make it interesting enough, that the whole movie can be basically played with that scene in mind. And I must say that we shot that in Vancouver, same place where we shot McCabe and Mrs. Miller, and I must say that I love to shoot in Vancouver. I love Vancouver, actually, as a filmmaking place. And I know I live in San Francisco, and I always say that Vancouver is Canada's San Francisco, actually. And I love to live there. Now I lived there for the last 3 years, and I love it there, and I love it so much. Like, I love to be in Vancouver, and I would not mind to go and live there and shoot movies there. Still.
There's a question right there. Yeah.
Hi, I have a question about Heaven's Gate, and you were talking about shooting The Deer Hunter, and it was an epic film. Did you have mixed feelings about going to Heaven's Gate? with the same director, and did you think it was going to be an epic film, and how everything was going to play out?
Well, we thought it was going to be a great film, and it didn't turn out to be a great film. But what happened? It's turning into a great film. It's really a funny thing that you mentioned this film, because I think now it's becoming a classic. And sometimes it happens. And in those days when we shot it, we thought that we were doing a great movie. But when it came out, the critics hated it, the people hated it, and all that. And what did I know, I didn't know anything about that the movie was really basically should have been made today. Because what happens in that movie, basically, it all the great movies, many times it happens between, politically speaking a little bit, rich people against poor people. And, Heaven's Gate is about that, the poor immigrants against the rich landowners. And in those days when we shot that movie, everything was great in America. It was great for me, it was great for everybody who lived in those days. Jobs were fantastic, there was no unemployment. Everything was great, right? So that comes Michael Cimino and makes a movie about poor immigrants against rich people. Who the hell cares about it in those days? Everybody was happy, right? Now, today, when you look at the movie, you say, wow, Michael Cimino is a genius. He knew ahead, what's going to happen, Well, that's the story of Heaven's Gate for me, It's amazing that I'm looking at today, and I really think exactly, the way it should have been thought in those days, that it was maybe a prediction, or maybe it was just clairvoyance. I don't know what it is, but it was perfect, actually, for me, as a movie. And unfortunately, it's only one or two prints are available, and the only ones are the long version. The short version, which was like 90 minutes, it was thrown away, burned up. That was terrible. That was unbelievable. But the long version is the one which lives, and amazing, to watch it today. I don't know. Has anybody seen in a theater recently Heaven's Gate? Where?
Here.
I saw the
Film festival, I don't know, 7-8 years ago, and then it had 2 or 3 screenings at the Cinematographer before this building.
Oh, great. So some people have. How many people saw that? Well, a few people. Yeah.
I believe you have a microphone? Yeah, go ahead.
Yes. Okay, I have 2,033 questions.
But you're going to pick one.
Okay. When I was learning about film, my directing teacher showed us Deliverance, and he mentioned this shot that was, according to him, the most significant, or the most loaded with signification zoom in film history, when you have this very quick zoom on Burt Reynolds with his bow in the woods. And I was wondering how this shot was done, because it's a very, very quick zoom with a very, very precise frame at the end. And the other question I have very quickly is about the one-ers that we were talking about. We talked about it from the point of view of directors, but I would like to have your point of view on one-ers, on long shots like that. What do you think of them?
Which long shots?
Every long shot. Like, you work with Spielberg, you work with Brian De Palma, you work with directors that love long takes.
Oh, long-lasting takes.
Yes.
Well, I really love, actually, I love when a director and the actors get together and try to keep a shot as long as it can go on. And I am not too keen about, movies which every cut actually is lasting for 1 second or something like that. And some people think that there's no cuts. It's like getting boring. And it's difficult to say, that why. But I think that if a director works like Woody Allen also likes to work with long-lasting shots, at least lately, And I think if you keep together a shot going, you get involved with the movie more than when you have cuts. Because each time you have a cut, it's like you're sitting in a theater and you are watching a movie. There's cut. Okay. Then you think that that's what movies are about. It's cut. I don't think it's about that. I think it's about storytelling, about visuals, and many times a long-lasting shot actually it's very nice to have, because you are feeling you are there and it's happening. You forget that you are sitting in a theater. And luckily, I did a couple of movies with Woody, who likes to do it that way, and he's also, interestingly enough, he's a good writer. He can actually to somehow stage a scene that in one shot he can move the camera and in a movement he can zoom at the same time that we are hiding the zoom, and then everything seems like that it blends together, and you don't have to cut, and one shot actually tells the story. There was, for example, interesting thing that another cinematographer, I don't want to mention his name because he's a great cinematographer, friend of mine. He did the Woody Allen movie once for 2 days, the first 2 days. Because he was the one actually that Woody made a scene, which lasted 3 minutes. They did it about 7 or 8 times. That was the first day. 7 or 8 times they did the shot. And then Woody said, okay, I got it, let's go home. And then this cinematographer said, no, wait a second, what about the close-ups? And he said, what close-ups? I said, well, don't you want to cover, do a cutaway just in case if you want to edit it shorter? I said, I'm not going to edit it shorter. I said, but don't you think that maybe it would be nice to have it in the back just in case? I said, I don't need that in the case, but if it's in the case, then the editor might use it. I don't want the editor to use it. So he kept, talking, tried to convince him, to do a coverage. Finally, and then the second day, I actually sent him home. I said, I don't think I can work with you because, you have tried to do a different movie. And that's so refreshing to see that the director is firm about it, his idea that that's what I want to do, and that's what I'm going to do, and no other way, and that's the way I want the movie to come out. So, his movies to edit is probably very, very easy because all they have to do is just splice it together.
And the second question was about the bow shot in Deliverance, the zoom shot.
Oh, the zoom shot, yeah. But, I did that with the hand zoom. That's the only way, basically, to do a fast zoom like that with the handle on the zoom, and we just do it. And if you're lucky, you end up in the right place. If you're not lucky, you do it a few more times.
That's great. I have a question right up here, yeah.
When forming long-term relationships or collaborations with directors, what should a cinematographer look for in a director?
Well, it's great actually for your bank account. Because you can work, if you work with Woody, we can get, stick to him, he does a movie every year. So imagine 50 years, 50 movies. That's good. No, it doesn't happen, that way a lot, because I think it could get boring actually to work together for a long time, because then you start maybe repeating yourself a lot or something, and then I personally think that it didn't hurt my career that by not working with directors more than 3 or 4 times. And I was happy to work with Steven Spielberg twice. I wish I would have worked a little bit longer, but it just didn't happen. But I could not blame it on him or me or something. It just didn't happen because the schedule didn't happen that way. And he found actually another cinematographer who is willing to work with him all the time, which is great, because they work together fantastically. I mean, it's nothing wrong, with Sven Nykvist, work with Swedish director, what's his name? Bergman, yes. I think it was great for their cooperation for all the movies, because they were, like brothers, basically to work together all the time, and that must be a great thing also to have that kind of a relationship, But it's very seldom it really happens, because I think some people like to move on and do other things and do other kind of movies, and so it didn't hurt me at all to work with a lot of people. Occasionally I worked with somebody I should not have worked, but it happens sometimes that you do a job because you think it's going to be benefit, and then after about a week's working together, you see, oh God, I should not have done that movie because I don't think I can do my thing. And many times work with a great director and find that your personality doesn't match somehow. I was little bit. I had a little hard time to work with somebody actually who was a great director, but was an English style director and liked to work with his operator than not with me. And I am a director of photography, but I liked myself, and I like to sometimes be behind the camera myself. And I don't like when a director just talks to the operator about the shot, like the composition is the only important element, in photography, and the lighting is secondary. In fact, if I work with a director like that, I cannot do my lighting because the shot that usually they come up with, it's so complicated and all that, and it's very difficult for me to light it right, and I'm not happy with that. So why should I work with somebody, who doesn't let me do that job also? And I strongly believe, that the operating is a very important job. And that's why many DPs like to operate themselves, the camera, because it's a totally different thing, because I light through the camera, I light it, I compose it myself, and I like to shoot it actually myself. And, occasionally, and in my life actually, I found some operators I love to work with because the operator was doing exactly what I told him to do. And in that case, I have more time to light, which I like. Because I think the most important job in any cinematography job is the lighting, which creates the mood and creates basically the style of the movie. The lighting is like 90% of my job, and 10% is the job, to frame it right. Because the frame, yes, it has to be framed right, but you can learn that. But lighting is something more than learning it. Light is like a feeling. The light is creating the mood. It's that the artistic part of your job is what to do with the lights, where you put the lights, and what kind of mood you are creating. Without that, I don't think that you can make a good movie.
So I just got a signal. We have time for one more question.
First, I'd just like to say it's such a privilege to be here, and thank you for sharing all of this knowledge and experience with us. My question is taking the previous question a little further. I'm interested in how, if you could tell me or us a little bit about your process going from when you read a script and then pre-production, just preparing, and your relationship with your director just before production starts. So what is the work that you do, or how do you prepare? I'm a bit interested in that process.
Interesting question. How do you work with the director? You know, it's the most important thing, how to do the director's ideas and what the director wants, and how to take that idea and make it my idea also, and try to do the job but the director likes and also I like. And in order to do that, you know, you have to have a director who is very open, and I should be very open. So it's interesting that working together is very, very important, and that the best thing, you know, at the beginning, first of all, to meet somebody. After you read the script, usually you have a meeting with the director. Then, in that discussion, the very first discussion, you will find out right away if the two of you is going to be able to work together or not. Because that happens many times, that you feel right away that it's not going to work out. Not often that happened in my life. I've been very, very lucky that most of the directors who hired me, they knew that I am a pretty strong DP who have very good ideas and very helpful with directors. And then they let me do my job in order to do their job. And the directors have so many other things to do, you know, which are very important for them. Like they had to deal with the producers, script writers, editors, actors. They have so much time to spend with them that they don't really want to spend with the visual part of that, which should be my job. And if they let me help with that, I can take off a lot of burden from a director's shoulder, and then we can really do a good job together if the director has a trust that I can really, really do what they want to do. And so I usually try to listen very much what the director's idea is and try to please them, and that's how I can do my job also the best. So it's a very interesting relationships, and not often had great relationship like that, but certainly I did with Michael Cimino, who we worked together very, very well in two movies, and we could hardly even talk to each other about what to do, because he did his job, I did my job, and we both did the job. And when I asked him in many interviews how does he like to work with me, and he had this thing that said, well, you know, we are just like two musicians, and we're like two brothers, and we are doing for the same idea. We have to doing the same thing in just different parts. And, you know, like jazz music is, you know, one guy comes up with a theme, the other one picks it up, and they're just jamming together and becomes a jazz. And, you know, this is like in the movie making, working with director and cameraman. And that's how I like to work, actually. And then 90% of the time I had this with Brian De Palma, certainly, you know, it was interesting to work because he usually sits on the set, on a chair, while I'm writing, and he occasionally looks up, you know, what I'm doing, and then maybe he's busy looking at his script or something like that, and never bothers me, never asking me questions why I'm doing this, why I'm doing that. And then when I'm ready, we just shoot. And then, you know, it's interesting that how we can work together without even talking to each other. You know, we know what we want to do. We're doing the same movie. And it turns out it's all movie. And we never know that what idea was his and what idea was mine. And it doesn't matter. At the end, actually, everybody said, wow, that was great. Movie great, directing great, cinematography great, acting great thing. And that's Deer Hunter or Heaven's Gate. It's just not one shot which I would say that it was my idea. It was not my idea. It was everybody's idea. And it's there.
Thank you so much for joining us today and being so generous in your feedback and your perspective on your career and what our audience members can do to really further film. And you're talking about the importance of light and classics and collaboration. Please join me in showing immense gratitude for our guests today.